Hey guys, welcome to another video today. So today's learner driver was Alice. She passed at Wanstead Driving Test Centre on her first attempt with only 2 minor faults. So in today's video, I will be doing a voiceover of just giving some potential tips to the viewers that are watching today on where learner drivers tend to make faults on this test route. Guys who are watching today, please make sure you like, share and subscribe as we do appreciate your support. So the examiner instructed the pupil to move away and then take the first road on their left. When you do turn left onto this road, please be aware of potential meet situations. So it is advisable to take that turn slightly slower here, okay? As you can see, there was a meet situation that arrived here. As the other road user flashed my pupil tended to proceed, but always make sure that you proceed with caution because sometimes other road users tend to flash another road user. However, it is not safe to proceed. And then after that, the examiner, as you can see on the sat nav, it did instruct the pupil to turn left. When turning left at this mini roundabout, it is slightly blinded, so it is advisable that you treat it as a closed junction mini and proceed with caution. It is a crossroad mini, so that means you have to not only worry about people on the right, but also oncoming traffic ahead of you with a right signal. This is Wellesley Road now, guys. So this road again is known for meet situations. As there are parked vehicles on both sides of the road, nobody has priority in this meet situations and any meet situations that may arise. So it's always advisable to be the defensive driver, but also look for gaps early on. So if there's a meet situation, you are planning well ahead and anticipating meets and obviously coming into the gaps early. Obviously here the examiner instructed the pupil to pull over on the left, and as you can see, she pulled over in a safe, legal and convenient location. She avoided the driveways, which was excellent. And then after that, the examiner instructed her to move away when she was ready. The sat-nav instructed the pupil to turn right at the end of the road here. As it is on a slight incline gradient, obviously make sure that you are at the biting point in order to not roll back. If you are obviously driving a manual transmission vehicle, as this junction is extremely blinded, I always advise my pupils to creep and peep out of this junction, just in case there are any other road users on the major road. Sometimes as well, examiners instruct the pupil to pull over here. On this occasion, the pupil, I believe, was not instructed to pull over here, but if you are, you do need to be cautious of the minor road on your right, as you do want to avoid pulling over opposite that. Then the examiner instructed the pupil to turn left. This is a crossroad, so make sure that you do the correct observations, which is looking from right ahead of you, left ahead of you, and right. And then after that, the pupil, when they did turn left, obviously do be cautious again because it is slightly blinded on your left here. Then the sat-nav instructed the pupil to turn left at these set of traffic lights, which turns onto George Lane that leads to South Woodford Station. For those of you that will be taking your test in Wanstead, this road is notorious. It is known for meet situations. Obviously, there are larger vehicles that tend to come down this road, especially buses. So it's really important that you do plan well ahead and look for safe gaps to obviously come into if you do have to give way to other road users. So that's a word of advice there. And also do be careful for clearance as well, because learners tend to get close to parked cars on the left when they do see a larger vehicle. So we need to be assessing ahead. After this, the sat-nav instructed the pupil to turn left onto the flyover, the viaduct. Again, it is so be aware of this zebra crossing, the pedestrian crossing, as sometimes pupils tend to turn left there at some speed and they don't acknowledge pedestrians that are waiting to cross at the junction. And then as you can see on the screen, the sat nav has stated that it wants us to turn right. It is the second exit, right? So as your exit is after your 12 o'clock, it means that when you do the MSPSL routine on approach, you should start with a right signal. As it is a non-light controlled roundabout, the best gear to approach is in second gear, unless you have to stop. And obviously do be cautious and respond to other road users when approaching the roundabout. As Alice passed the first exit, then you need to obviously do your mirrors and signal down for left and maneuver to the left. And also be aware of pedestrians that tend to cross here as well, and for buses that do pull out or parked vehicles. So do look for signals or the body language of vehicles on your left. So the sat nav's instructed the pupil to turn right. Do be wary of this box junction, as you don't want to stop on the box junction. As the sat nav states, there's 2 lanes turning right, and also if you look at the road markings, it suggests 2 lanes are turning right. It is better to be in the left hand of the 2. If you were, however, to be in the right lane, that is not an issue, providing you come back to the left lane when it is safe to do so. And you obviously want to use the MSM routine at that point. Obviously, it's a light controlled T junction, so you should proceed with no hesitation. And as you can see, the learner obviously started in the left lane and naturally forward into the correct lane. Eventually here, the lanes do merge into one, so it is critical that you are doing your mirror checks and shown to the examiner that you are aware that 2 lanes are merging into one as well. So the examiner actually instructed the pupil to turn left here. They took them to a local car park, which is the South Woodford Tesco car park. Now, when the examiners do take you to this car park, dependent on what angle you approach it from, either you will be on an uphill gradient or a downhill gradient. So it's important, if those of you who do drive manual cars, to assess the gradient, especially as that will help with your clutch control. Because if you are on an incline gradient, you will need to obviously have the car at its biting point. If you are on a decline gradient, then at that point you don't need the car at its biting point, as due to the law of gravity, it will naturally roll forwards. The examiner then instructed my pupil to do a forward bay park into any convenient parking bay of her choice on the left or right. So as I can see, believing in my pupil, they would have chose a bay on the right as it's totally clear. And what you must do is, obviously, once you've achieved your reference point, it's important that you do the POM routine. So you prepare your feet, you do your observations, and then obviously you maneuver into the parking bay. If, guys, you don't get the maneuver on the first attempt, it is not the end of the world, as you should correct it. Providing you rectify your mistake, it will only be a minor fault. And guys, make sure all four wheels are in the parking bay. So once you've finished your maneuver, do mention to the examiner, if they haven't mentioned it to you, that you would like to check your maneuver. Very, very important. So my pupil did get the maneuver in on their first attempt. Then the examiner instructed them to reverse out of the parking bay, and they want the front of the car to be facing the right. And then they were instructed to turn left at the end of the road. You need to be careful, as there's a junction just before you're turning, so you don't want to obviously be putting on an early signal, as that would be misleading. And guys, make sure you are looking for pedestrians that are waiting to cross as you're emerging out of junctions.